This is before the pandemic, obviously, this picture. And this is there in the main center. This is our meditation and movement retreat, which we have every year, Labor Day, Saturday of Labor Day weekend. This year, it's September 3rd, 2022. This is a few years back, well, you know, every time I think about time, I have to add on 2 years. Several years plus 2 years back for that retreat. And as you see, people are doing some of their favorite postures from our Five Realms practice. I've just did a little quick thing about the restorative practice that we just did, the Five Realms movement that we just did, right? It's something that helps the connection and flow between your body, your mind, and your spirit. We do left and right to help balance and harness your yin and yang energies. And we're looking at those 5 elements of air, fire, earth, and water, and space. And restorative practices generally, right, they relieve stress and increase flexibility, coordination, and balance in your body. And particularly restorative practices have a way of connecting what you do with your body to your daily life, your spirit. And so Five Realms is similar in nature to Tai Chi, yoga, or Qigong. It's a simple set of movements. We did those 5 movements. We did them seated. You could do them standing, reclining. And there's other forms and so forth. But one of the main ideas behind it is, I think, best said through a quote from Bruce Lee. And it's, by adopting a certain physical posture, a resonant chord is struck in spirit. By adopting a certain physical posture, a resonant chord is struck in spirit. That just means if you need a little bit more flexibility in your life, or in a particular situation, you want to maybe do a water movement, help you move in a way that's fluid, and then it will resonate into your spirit. That's basically what Bruce Lee is saying. There you go. So that gives you the description. If you're interested in more, you can email me and say, hey, give me some more about Five Realms, and I'll do that. And here's a picture back from the same thing, the Meditation and Movement Retreat. This one was, there's the date on it, it's 2016. And we were out at Snow Park together. As part of it, we would walk out to Snow Park, do some movements outside, and come back inside. And so I just decided to put that up there because I'm trying to claim, you know, us getting back together in real time, face to face. And so when I was just looking through my stuff, I saw that picture and I thought, yeah, we need to be back together when it's safe to do so. And hopefully that'll be soon. See, there's my alarm to do 5 rounds. My nightly practice. All right, so I just thought I would share that. That's us, East Bay Meditation Center folks at Snow Park, which is just like a block from the center. Okay, so I talked about like martial arts and how it is safety, health, and wisdom, and it's got 3 parts. It's got practices that traditional martial arts, it's got restorative practices and meditation in terms of what we actually do in practice. But I also want to give you this connection between martial arts and where EBMC is. EBMC is a center that focuses on social justice, and I just like to remind people, or if you're a new friend to me, that martial arts is not, people think about it as, you know, fighting. You see stuff in TV and movies, but it's really about making sure we are devoted to justice. Genshin Funakoshi, which is considered one of the modern pillars of martial arts. He was a practitioner of karate, Japanese practitioner of karate. He said a bunch of stuff about martial arts, you know, like it's You can do all these tricks with martial arts. You can break things and you can, you know, crush things with your hands and do all these neat tricks and whatever. He said, but really all that stuff is, you know, they amount to, you know, sort of demonstration type parlor tricks. He said, real martial arts, real karate do is this, that in daily life, one's mind and body be trained and developed in a spirit of humility, and that in critical times, one be devoted utterly to the cause of justice, utterly to the cause of justice. And today we're talking about Marubashi, the bridge of life, Marubashi. So I'm going to start you out with this. Marubashi. Comes to us, this word, this idea comes to us from traditional samurai. And what we call samurai, they call themselves bushi. Samurai was, in some cases, those folks consider that to be a little bit derogatory. They actually call themselves bushi. And their art Bushido. So it comes to us from those who lived in the 15th, 16th century in Japan. This concept of Marubashi, it's the bridge of life, the bridge of life. And what does it mean? A situation or condition with only one solution to meet the problem head on without hesitation. That's what it basically means. The literal translation of Marubashi is the bridge of life. And the conceptual translation is a situation or condition with only one solution to meet the problem head on without hesitation. Samurai thought of a crisis as a warrior walking across a log bridge who's met by an opponent. So you just walking across the bridge, minding your own business, traveling down the road. But then you're met by this opponent who is very clear about causing you harm. Take out their sword and they're running towards you on this log bridge. Well, but you're on this log bridge, so to turn left or right, you would fall off and die. So you can't escape left or right. If you reverse course and go back where you came from, you're going to be struck down from behind. And if you take more than a moment to ponder a response, it means certain death, because that opponent is going to come get you. Warrior's only choice is swiftly engage an opponent. A dire moment, this is what this means. A dire moment stipulates that you cannot turn away. A dire moment stipulates that you cannot turn away. Okay, so I'm going to maybe do some translation on this. So what does this mean? What does this mean? That sometimes in life we have a crisis that comes to us, a situation, a crisis, and we can't get away from it, can't ignore it. We have to move forward. That's really our only choice. We can't go left or right, can't go back where you came from, but you have to go through it. You have to meet it head on without much hesitation. So we're looking at that kind of situation and then how you get through that. Marubashi, the bridge of life. So first, I'm just going to say, okay, like, let's have some interaction. Raise your hand. Like, you have been in a situation where it's a crisis. It was like, I can't get around this left or right. You know, George Clinton sang about it. Can't get around it. Can't get under it. Can't get out. You got to go through it. Right? Raise your hand. Let me see. You've been in that kind of a situation. I'm just flipping through my screen. I'm just looking at hands. Like, I'm trying to connect with people here. No, we're on Zoom. Like, or shake your head. I see some people shaking heads. Yeah. You've been in a situation where it's, oh my gosh, it's a crisis. It's something that happened and I have to go through this. I can't get around it. I can't go left or right. I can't go back. Now, what's our first example of this? I'm going to go through a bunch of examples just to kind of give you an idea of what this means in sort of daily life now. What does this mean in life Now, we're not like in the 15th, 16th century, right? In feudal Japan. So how do we use that wisdom for now? Well, the obvious one is the pandemic, right? The obvious one's the pandemic. Is that when we started the pandemic, we were trying to get around it as best we could. I'm speaking of the big you, right? The collective you, the collective us. We stay at home, maybe 2 weeks. What did we say in the beginning? 2 weeks. Maybe it'll be a month. Maybe it'll just be till April. Oh, just till May. Right? That's us trying to get around it. Things will be back to normal right away. That's trying to go back to where we were. But we've had to really change how we do things. We needed to meet it head on. There's no way to get around it. That virus didn't care what you thought about it, what your political views are or weren't, is coming to touch as many people as it could. And then it's going to change up on us a bunch of times. And so it required that we change a lot of things about our life. And we could go through a long list, but I think you get what I'm saying, right? Like this is a situation in which it's the bridge of life. We're met with a crisis. We can't get around it, can't go back to where we were. And if we don't change what we're doing, it's going to really be bad for a lot of us. A lot of people died. A lot of people are still dying. Even one of my good friends, Republican in Florida, has admitted it's not a Democratic hoax anymore. Like, we got to face it, right? Okay. So what else out of that? I'll give you some quick things. So like East Bay Meditation Center, the first one, right? Like there was, if I remember correctly, a 3 to 5 year plan on how to get online before the pandemic. And the pandemic came, and the staff, there's somebody here today from staff, they got online right away. My memory says it was 8 days. Yeah, I got a heads up. Yeah, that's right. 8 days. So rather than, okay, we're going to take 3 to 5 years to think about how we're going to do it and plan it out carefully, within 8 days, East Bay Meditation Center had gone on lockdown and put everything online. It was a tremendous amount of work. So again, it's Marubashi, Bridge of Life. A crisis comes, you got to move forward, you got to meet it head on. Not too much hesitation. Move directly into the face of the problem. EBMC went online in 8 days. I heard EBMC was doing that research to get online, and I joined them. I was online inside of 8 days too, for our school, Ananda Martial Arts. We translate. So that's, an example, a quick example. So I'm sure many of you have personal examples around that, how around the pandemic, but then you can think about other situations as well. I have had now 9 people die in my circle in 10 months. I've had 9 people die in my circle in 10 months. I can't remember a time where I've had 2 people die in a year in my circle. 9 people in 10 months. I just came back from a funeral in the Midwest, and none of them had to do with the pandemic. None of them. So you might say these are like normal deaths. A couple of elders, but one young is 9. A couple of people my age, a couple of friends. And so I'm bringing this up just because some of us may face situations where a loved one may have passed, for example, or may have a health crisis, or maybe you have a health crisis, and this changes our life. This is a situation that we cannot get around. I see a couple of people shaking heads that that a passing of a loved one, a friend, a family member, a community member, or a health challenge, or losing a job, or losing housing. These things are the kind of crisis that we might point to and say, this is Marubashi. This is a bridge of life. This is something I can't turn away from. I have to deal with it. And how do we step in to meet those kinds of things directly? So we could look, now that we understand what that is, Marubashi, we could look at that and find plenty. There's no shortage of those kinds of situations. How do we deal with them? The basic response was a very simple idea. And the response is a word called shomenuchi. Shomenuchi just meant straight head strike. That's the literal translation, straight head strike. But the conceptual thing is that it meant that we move straight forward to the crux of the problem without turning away, which we just talked about, right? Is to be but to do it in a balanced way. And if we go back to that analogy, that situation, right? We're imagining being on that log. I can't turn around and go back. I can't go left. I can't go right. I'll fall off. I just have to go forward now, but I'm on a log, right? And so this idea of stepping into the work that you need to do in a balanced way. It's not a lot of fanfare or fancy techniques in order to get yourself out of that situation. It's just taking your sword and moving straight ahead into the danger. And what does this mean is that we're not necessarily trying to do lots of fancy things to get to none of the problem, but just stepping directly into it and doing what we know is best to enter and resolve that problem. Okay, I'm going to bring something up here on the screen. So we got to just go a couple down now. We talked about Marubashi. So there's maybe 3 C's that we want to think about, because Marubashi, being in a bridge of life, kind of, you might think, well, what skills do I need? What information, what wisdom do I need in order to, talking about moving into the face of danger without hesitation is one thing, but like, do we have some examples of that? There are lots. And here for POC, so we're going to talk about collective history. I'm just going to mention these 3 quickly: collective history, personal history, and individual history. These are the 3 C's that you might consider to help you get ready for situations in the future that are going to be, have you on that bridge of life. How do you get ready? We might use the word train. How do you train? How do you get ready for crisis when it comes? Because, probably one of the things we can kind of be sure of is another crisis is coming, whether it be something that is a challenge for this planet, a challenge for those in our community, or a challenge just for yourself, right? Those 3 things. So if we look at our collective history, our personal history, our individual history, then we might find some clues on what to do. So if we look at collective history, we might think about Emmett Till and Ahmaud Arbery. Emmett Till's mother decided to have an open casket at his funeral. And many historians will point to the fact that this is one thing that was a spark for much of the civil rights movement that we had in the 60s. And that his body, as tortured as it was, the conventional wisdom at that time was to have a closed casket. But she was like, no, I want everybody to know. I want everybody to see what happened. And what do I now then talk about, touch upon Ahmaud Arbery? Well, just a day or so ago, we get to the end of this case. The U.S. attorneys were trying to do a plea deal, and Ahmaud Arbery's mother said, no, no plea deal. There's a difference between going to federal prison or state prison and serving out that full time, that life sentence. And she wanted no plea deals. And eventually that is what happened, is that there was no plea deal in that case. That was resolved just about a day ago. She wanted justice, and the pursuit of justice in these two cases is we see those seeds from Emmett Till to Ahmaud Arbery, what was done to those folks, those people, those young Black boys, those young Black men, and how their mothers responded to this terrible situation that they had to go through, but pushed through and really just focus on one path. I want everybody to know. Emmett Till's mother said, Ahmaud Arbery's mother, I do not want a plea deal. It has to be that we get justice for this. We can't keep going through this. Just recently, I heard also Trayvon Martin's mother speak. It was an audio recording. I heard giving a speech. And someone asked her, how is it that you can do this? You can, facing this pain like all the time. She's a full-time speaker about the life of her son being taken. How can you do this all the time? And this is something that people will point to, that one of the sparks for Black Lives Matter is the death of Trayvon Martin. And I was interested in what she said, is that she said, it's work for me. It's not something I enjoy. It's not something I chose. So I just treat it like work, in that I try to have some balance and step away from it from time to time. She said that she has to disconnect from talking about it all the time, doing those speaking engagements. That she goes to the beach, she goes to the spa, she goes shopping, and she has to have some time where she doesn't talk to anybody about it. And so with those collective history, that seed, where we have examples of what it's like to be on that bridge of life, to have a crisis, something you did not choose, but then move forward through it to the other side, move forward to get to the other side of whatever that crisis is. So personal history. I'll give you an example of my grand aunt, Nancy Davis. My grand aunt, Nancy, which I've talked about her at EBMC once or twice before, but it comes up because every time I'm thinking about Black History Month, there's my Aunt Nancy, my grandfather's sister on my mom's side, my grandfather's sister, my mom's side. I don't know when to say great aunt, but I always, as a kid, I thought I was like, no, it's grand aunt, because it's my grandfather's sister. So I'm keeping that. She's the first Black person, or I should say person of color, to go to college in the state of Oklahoma. She was in college in 1954. This is when, this is like they're trying to decide Brown versus Board of Education by then. My grand aunt Nancy was already in school then. She was the first Black person to go to school in Oklahoma State University. They, kept her out of the class. They made her sit in the hallway, and she couldn't stay on campus and all that kind of stuff, right? Like we know the drill. It was fortunate that during her life, they of course apologized to her many, many times, named a building after, a day after, and so forth. But she was a fierce advocate around education justice. And I see that in my personal history, my family tree, there's so many teachers. We have teachers and school board members and principals. I mean, it's just, I mean, doing an exact count, but it just feels like half the family on my mom's side, they're teachers. And I can see that seated and that fierceness around making sure that justice is pursued in education. And what is her Marubashi moment, right? They put her out in the hallway, said, you can't come out, you can't actually be in class. And she decided to be the best. She studied. She was first in her class. And the other students demanded that to the professor. They're like, if she doesn't come in here, we're going to sit on the outside too. And so that's actually how they changed that. Now, of course, we look at that now and say, well, it shouldn't have to be that you have to be the best student in the class in order, to serve justice. But in 1954, that was the choice. And what about my individual history? My path is around the combination of my parents' skills. My mother's a nurse, my father's a preacher. And I can look back, at this point in my life and see how what both my parents gave me, the seeds that they planted in me, leads to my individual path and leads to where I am now. Of course, I have the possibility of adding in my own interests and my own skills and my own, desires and so forth. But it's not only those good things that they gave to me. One of my greatest pains is also part of my path. And so it's not always that, something given to us that we like, we want, whatever, our education from our parents, the things that we learn just from watching them, or whoever our adults are that are in our lives, or mentors, or whoever that other friend may be that inspires us to do something. We don't always have the same exact path, but whoever those other people are that are inspiring our individual path, we all have our pains as well. And at some point, we have to reconcile with those. Right? I was abused as a child, not by my parents, but sexually abused as a child by a relative. And so that, one of my greatest pains, leads to one of my greatest strengths. And it took a friend noticing that in me. Wow, John, I think that's why you were so interested in martial arts. You want to heal and create, safety for yourself and others. And about 7 or 8 years after I started martial arts, a friend says this to me, and I was like, I think you're right. It's part of healing my past. So we look at our collective history. We look at our family tree. We look at our own personal history, our individual history as well, and find seeds that give us examples of overcoming things, overcoming a crisis, of overcoming things that could be considered that bridge of life. So I just also want to say quickly about this. We have future needs, right? So not only, I'm in the space of life where I'm not only thinking about where I was, but where I'm going. And, I have young students, and what kind of seeds are we planting for those who will come after us? Now, there's, of course, I love the Native tradition around thinking about decisions that have going to make 7 generations behind us proud and are going to be good for the 7 generations to come. And I might, for African American, that's tough to be thinking about 7 generations behind, is to have connection and names to those. But if I want to think about 3, what about the 3 generations? What about the 3 behind, the 3 ahead? If we live a average lifespan, what about the 3 generations behind us In my family, we just had a grandmother pass at 97. And I've got children. I have friends my age with grandchildren. So the average lifespan, you may get 3 generations. You may see, a couple behind and a couple ahead of you. And I'm wondering, what kind of seeds are we planting for the bridge of life, Marubashi, the Christ sees that is here now or to come? What are our future needs? Shining light on deeds kept in the dark. What do I mean by that? That's just, we have a lot of, a good example of that would be Time's Up movement. Black Lives Matter. Or the killing of particularly Black and brown people by the police. We've seen several police officers in the last week or so facing justice for things that they did. The officers in the George Floyd case, shining light on deeds kept in the dark. So more and more so, power structures are being held accountable. Not that we're nearly done with all that work, but again, that's something that I think is being seeded now. We see that in finance, in housing. Lots of light being shined on things that have been kept in the dark for a long time. In terms of health, we really have a challenge with our air that the next generations have to deal with clean water, with our food. And this notion of being able to get decent exercise and rest. Why do I put exercise and rest in there? Well, that's alluding to 5 realms: are air, water, food, exercise and rest. Exercise and rest meaning we've seen after sitting for like 2 years almost. We're almost at 2 years in March, mid-March. The pandemic of adding a lot of sitting to our daily regimen. We're starting to see actually we do need to get up and move around. And then rest. A lot of us have been claiming the rest that we've gotten maybe in these 2 years and the schedules that jobs and work demands put upon us, that we're rethinking these things. Do I really need to be working 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 hours a day, every day for years? And in wisdom, discerning the truth. There's a lot of disinformation, right, that comes to us because of our digital tools that we have. We haven't really learned how to deal with those yet. Well, we're like kids with new toys. We just don't know what to do with them yet. A lot of our digital tools make things very difficult for us to see the truth. Well, what's the truth? That's a whole nother topic. So one last thing I want to leave you with. Consider it's West African wisdom around Ghana, Mali, Dogon people. Who are you? They would ask, who are you? Where are you? And what time is it? Who are you? Who are you? What are your particular skills? What is your calling in life? Where are you? What's the community that you're in? What needs to be done? And what time is it? Is it time for you to rest? Is it time for you to train? Is it time for you to get ready? Is it time for you to learn? Is it time for you to do? Is it time for you to act? Is it time for you to seek justice in a particular situation? Who are you? Are you that person traveling along your path, minding your own business? Where are you? Are you on that log? On that bridge? Are you in a situation that's a crisis? Marubashi. What time is it? Then it may be time for you to act. decisively. All right, so just before we go, I'll say I have an air seminar coming. It is going to be March 19th. It's a Saturday. It's at 3 o'clock. We do about 5 seminars a year. It's 3 hours, but we do practice, demonstration, discussion. We go through the standing Five Realms form and some other stuff, some air movements, and have some discussion around air energy. So again, you can email me if you're interested in joining me for that. And thank you so much for being with me. I think maybe we've got a minute or two for a question. If we have some questions, you just type them into the chat line there. If you've got a question or comment. Marubashi, what wisdom helps us move through a crisis? What's seated in our lives? We think about our collective history, our family history, our individual history. We find strength there. That's where our roots are. Those three areas. And I'm just peeking at the chat. And we have our other folks. Anybody? Any questions? Or we're good? We're complete. It looks like maybe we're complete. All right, so there's no questions. We're gonna close out and then we're gonna say hi to each other. We're gonna close out and then we say hi to each other. We've been sitting for a minute. Let's wiggle your shoulders, wiggle your hip a little bit. Let's kind of wake up your body. Maybe most of us were sitting still for a minute. Maybe some were standing, some reclining, but just wake your body up a little bit, shake it out. Let's take 3 breaths. 1, 2, 3. Hands together and bow. And thank you for joining us in the Sangha. We're dedicating our efforts to those who are facing yet another war. Those who are facing yet another war. And it's not just the people who are there who've already been killed in their families, but it tends to have a ripple effect out. And war touches so many lives that we want to dedicate our merit and hold in our thoughts, our minds, our hearts, peace for all those touched by war in all lands. We also want to dedicate that merit to those who are suffering, those who need healing. Thank you so much for joining us.